All right, welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and jump right in here. Just a few things before we get started. We've got, if there's any questions or anything that come up during the webinar, go ahead and please submit those through the WebEx Q&A section. If you would like the slide deck or have any follow-up questions that we don't get to during the presentation, make sure to include your email address in any questions you have, or you can email protect-health@shavlik.com, and after the webinar is complete, we'll be able to send out the slide deck. A recording of this presentation will also be made available probably by end of day today or early tomorrow on our webinars page as well. June 2013, Patch Tuesday. We're going to do a quick overview of the Microsoft patches that released. We're going to review the 2013 security bulletins and some general recommendations around those. We're also going to review third-party updates that came out on this Patch Tuesday. And then we'll also go back and recap just a high-level summary of everything that released since last Patch Tuesday. I always like to do that just to give everybody a general idea of the variety and depth of the product coverage and what has come out in between there in case you've missed anything in the past several weeks. Microsoft released 5 new security bulletins resolving 22 vulnerabilities. The most important of these is going to be the IE patch, which does resolve 18 vulnerabilities. One in particular that is probably the highest priority out of those 18 is a pretty nasty buffer overflow, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Products this month affect the all IE versions, all supported versions of the Windows operating system, and Microsoft Office 2003. The Office patch is also available on the Mac Office Edition. But the Mac platform is not currently supported by the Shavlik product. Breakdown of the severity and impact ratings. There's 1 critical bulletin this month, and there are 4 rated as important. The 2 of these vulnerabilities could lead to remote code execution, 1 elevation of privilege, 1 information disclosure, and 1 denial of service attack. This next slide is just I usually provide this just to give people a cross-reference showing the breakdown of the bulletin ID to CVE ID. Microsoft also likes to give the Exploitability Index, which basically gives you an idea of how likely and how easily could this exploit be or vulnerability be exploited. So you'll notice here all of the CVEs this month are really leaning heavily towards that MS13047 patch. That's the IE patch. The other 4 patches this month, the 4 important patches, only have a single CVE apiece. So obviously the most important is going to be that IE patch, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So the first patch that we will talk about is the IE patch. This is a cumulative security update for Internet Explorer. It does affect all versions of IE and several operating systems as well that ship with the browser included. It is a critical severity. It resolves 19 privately reported vulnerabilities. Actually, my number is 1 off there, but I think actually on their list they only showed 18 of them, so they might have 1 of them unlisted, and that's why I didn't see it in there. So an attacker who successfully exploits the most severe of these vulnerabilities could gain the same user rights as the current user. Users whose accounts are configured to have fewer rights on the system could be less impacted than other users who operate with administrative privileges. This month, the one of those CVEs in particular, let me see if I can pull it up here again. The buffer overflow vulnerability that Microsoft released, or the fix for is included in this, was actually able to be executed without authentication. So the administrative rights could still reduce that, but they weren't as clear on that in the CVE bulletin. Let me see if I can find that quick, though. probably have to come back to that one if I can find it online here. But of the 19 that they've reported here, one of those is a buffer overflow, which does not require, it's remote code execution, does not require authentication. So the likelihood and severity of that is pretty high. It has not been exploited in the wild as of yet, but the priority around this update is pretty high due to the severity of especially that vulnerability. It does replace two previous bulletins, MS13037 and MS13028. So obviously try to get this one rolled out as soon as possible. The next update is a vulnerability in Windows kernel, which could allow for information disclosure. It's only rated as an important. It affects all the Windows operating systems. Resolves one privately reported vulnerability in Windows that could allow information disclosure. It does replace two previous patches, MS13031 on most operating systems, and I believe Windows 7 64-bit MS13046 is the replacement, or the patch that's replaced by this. One thing to keep in mind, this next one here is also another kernel mode driver. Whenever you're updating the kernel, you do want to make sure to do as much testing as possible beforehand. So if you do have a set of test machines you can run against, or a set of machines that the users involved are those who can respond better if anything does go wrong, probably best to try it out on them first. But there's two kernel patches this month, so do make sure that those important patches get adequate testing before you roll them out in mass. So the next vulnerability here, or the next patch bulletin is 049. It's an important, also affects the Windows operating system, and resolves another privately reported vulnerability in Microsoft Windows that could lead to a denial of service attack. So for this one, the attacker is crafting packets to the server, and if you're following firewall best practices, the default firewall configurations can help protect networks from this, but there is still a chance that this could be problematic if it's able to be exploited. Still only rated as an important. I would say the bigger concern on this one is make sure testing is adequate before you roll it out, rather than trying to push it out as soon as possible. It does replace MS13018. The next patch here is MS13050. It's a vulnerability in Windows Print Spooler, which could allow for an elevation of privilege. It's, again, only rated as an important, affects the Windows OS, and resolves another privately reported vulnerability in Microsoft Windows that could allow for an elevation of privileges. In this case, the user must have a valid logon credential and be able to log on to exploit the vulnerability, so the severity of this goes way down. This is a case where you're dealing with print spooler. Some print spooler updates can affect other printer drivers on the machine. So if you've got a variety of different printers, you'll probably, especially those that are locally connected to a machine, you may want to test this against a couple of those first before you roll it out to all machines. It's been a while since I've seen a print driver conflict after a patch, but I would say it's not unheard of to see one patch or so a year come out that could potentially impact other third-party drivers. This does resolve or replace two previous patches, MS11073 and MS13026. The last of the Microsoft updates this month is actually a security advisory that updates, it's an update for vulnerabilities in Adobe Flash Player in Internet Explorer 10. So Flash is one of the third-party patches that we're going to be discussing here in just a few minutes. This patch is rated as a critical severity, and it affects IE10, but the severity is all on the Flash side. So this update makes it so that IE10 will support the new Flash plugins, which the Flash update we'll talk about here in a second, makes it so you can support the new version of that. Third-party overview for the May Patch Tuesday. I'm sorry, that's the June Patch Tuesday. I forgot to update that one on the slide. Vendors with Patch Tuesday releases include Apple iTunes, Apache Tomcat, the VLC Media Player, Adobe Flash, and Adobe Air. Maximum severity for these, actually, I got to get those slides updated before I send them out. Only one of these was a critical. The other ones did not have a severity and were mostly non-security in this case. The first of those, iTunes version 11.044 was released. It adds 3 new features and fixes a variety of known non-security issues. Apple has not disclosed any security vulnerabilities that were plugged by this release as of this time. So there's no impact or vulnerabilities fixed that have been identified. This does replace previous iTunes 11 versions. VLC Media Player, this is VLC 2.0.7. No severity on this update. It affects any VLC 2X product. On the security and stability front, there are some security vulnerabilities plugged here, but the vendor did not supply a severity on the patch. So in this case, there were 2 cross-site scripting issues, a memory leak, memory exhaustion, and an ActiveX plugin problem that were resolved by this vulnerability. As far as I could find, there were no CVEs relating to these, but there's 5 vulnerabilities plugged by this, so I would say it's probably at least something you should look into sooner rather than later. As far as I would prioritize this, I'd say to make sure to target the IE Cumulative and Security Advisory updates and the Flash update first, but this should follow not too far behind if you're running VLC Media Player in your environment. This patch does replace VLC 206 within our system. Oh, that's a slide from last month. My apologies there. I missed that slide, pulling that slide out of last month's deck. The next update here was for Tomcat 14. This is the Apache Tomcat 7041 update. There's actually been a reported 7.0.42 update as well, but that one looks like it's still in development and just available to in maybe a beta capacity right now, so there's probably another one coming here shortly. This is a non-security update. It resolves many known issues, so no vulnerabilities or security-related items reported for this update. The next one here is the Flash patch. So this is a security update for Adobe Flash 10, 11, and Adobe Air. There's multiple bulletins being resolved here. This is rated by Adobe as a critical update. Affects any of the Adobe Flash 10, 11, and Air versions on all platforms. So the one CVE that was reported here is a memory corruption issue that could lead to denial of service. It is rated as critical, and this is also where the IE10 security advisory came out, suggesting that people update that as soon as possible to support the new plugins. So this, again, both the IE security advisory and the Flash updates should be pushed as soon as possible to your environment. These patches do replace the APSB 13-15 update within our system. That was it for the Microsoft and third-party updates for this month. So the next thing I wanted to do was switch over and just review the product and patch releases since the May Patch Tuesday. So Google Chrome had 3 updates this last month, security-related. Skype had a security-related update. Wireshark had 2 updates, both security-related. CCleaner had 1 non-security release this last month. Tortoise had a single security release. Mozy Home and Pro both had a non-security update released. We added new support for some SQL products to support some additional patches. Actually, these are for the analysis services and reporting services, and what we did here was to better support detection on certain systems where the database engine was not installed, but the analysis services or reporting services could be installed individually. We added those in as individual products so we could better detect and push updates to the analysis services and reporting services for both, 2008, 2008 R2, and 2012 editions. Citrix had one non-security update this last month. AT&T Global Network Client had one security-related update. Foxit Reader, Real Player, and Apache Tomcat, each with a security update. FileZilla had one non-security. Microsoft had 14 non-securities and one additional security, which was MS13045. The Mac patch released on last Patch Tuesday, and the Microsoft one released shortly after. Actually, that was the communicator one. I apologize. The communicator patch, MS13045, released shortly after Patch Tuesday as being publicly available, where on Patch Tuesday it was available via download only. Apple QuickTime had one security update, and Apple iTunes had one security update. So one thing to always keep in mind is the Shavlik content team is delivering content updates typically twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. As always, we will work on any zero-day releases as soon as possible. They will be turned around typically within hours of the release from the vendor. But our goal is, to turn those around as soon as we hear about them. The other thing to keep in mind is Microsoft, isn't the only vendor out there releasing patches. Those third-party products in your environment are actually more frequently targeted than the Microsoft products today. The third-party vendors release throughout the month. So especially for your endpoints, it is good to get into at least a weekly patching regimen, if not more frequently, to handle all of the different updates that come out throughout the month. So I would say within any given Tuesday, Thursday throughout the month, we released 1 to 3 of the items that you see here before you. So it's always good to get into a regular patching schedule with the endpoints, and if you've got a high number of third-party products within your server environment, potentially look at more frequent patching for at least the non-high availability servers in your environment. But it's always harder to get those high availability servers to reach a maintenance window. So a couple other things. If there are any questions right now, you can go ahead and start to submit those. I haven't seen any come through yet. The most common question I usually get is, when can I view the webinar playback, and when can I get a copy of the slide deck? So again, slide deck, go ahead and email protect-help@shavlik.com and request that slide deck, and I'm going to make a few tweaks here from the things that I noticed that I had corrections to make, and get those out to you as soon as possible. The webinar playback should be available sometime later today or tomorrow from our webinars page. A couple of things to discuss product-wise in general. The new community.shavlik.com site is live. So if you haven't gone out there already, go check it out. It's very clean, crisp. It's extremely well done. We really appreciate the fast turnaround that our global services team on the LANDesk side took in getting that site up and running so quickly. The transition to the community is already complete. The VMware and LANDesk support teams are still working, in parallel. So if you do have any support issues, you can keep contacting support the way you have been. Also, there's the support@shavlik.com email address, if you haven't already switched over to it, is live, and our support teams are responding there. Phone numbers won't be changing. A couple other things that I wanted to note here. We are actually bringing a manual activation portal coming soon here in the 9.0 Patch 1 release. So within a couple of weeks here, we'll be coming around with 9.0 Patch 1. This has a couple of issues reported from the field, and we're also implementing a manual activation portal. So for those customers running in a disconnected environment, you're going to have a portal you can get to now that's going to allow you to do that in a self-help method instead of having to contact support and wait for the turnaround. It's always been a pretty quick turnaround, but again, it's always easier to go and turn that around yourself than wait maybe 30 minutes to a couple of hours to get that manual activation turned around. One question came in so far. The email address for requesting the slides, that's protect-help@shavlik.com. So the Shavlik Protect 9.0 product is available for download. For those of you who may not have already seen the webinars or haven't heard about the new features, there are 2 major new features available in here. We now have support for updating VMware ESXi hypervisors, and we also have a new agent feature. By registering your console within protectcloud.shavlik.com, you can actually have agents go outside of your network and talk through our cloud services to continue to get policy updates and pass through results. So it's a great way to bring support out to the field without opening up ports on your firewall or opening up additional risk to your environment. So a great new feature. Actually, both features have been getting really good feedback from the customers. A lot of people are really interested in trying those out. All customers upgrading to 9.0 have both of those features available to them. So it is part of the standard and part of the advanced feature sets. If you would like to view the Introduction to 9.0 or the Upgrading to 9.0 webinars, you can always go out to shavlik.com under webinars. There is a link at the bottom there to view the webinar playback for either of those webinars that were run previously. And we also have our content announcements for those of you who have not subscribed. All of those updates between the Patch Tuesdays, rather than wait for the Patch Tuesday webinar to know what came out, you can subscribe to those content announcements and you can get via email or RSS feed updates as we release XML into our products. I don't see any other questions at this time, so I'll give a couple more minutes here. And again, just one more reminder, if you do want to get the slide deck, email protect-health@shavlik.com, and as soon as I get this updated here, I'll be responding back to you. Thank you for joining us today, and if you do think of any other additional follow-up questions after the webinar, you can also email protect-health@shavlik.com to submit those questions, and I'll follow up with you as soon as possible.